I'm Aniyah Bennett, a 30-year-old HR manager, and this was my wedding day. My hands trembled as I checked my phone. No messages. Not from my parents. Not from my golden brother, Jeremy. As the music began, I saw them, the 3 empty front row seats. They stared back like silent accusers. I took a deep breath. I will not cry. I will not give them the satisfaction. Each step down the aisle felt heavy. My bouquet shook, but my spine stayed straight. Every step was a declaration. I was my own witness. The absence spoke louder than any words my parents could have said. I walked myself into my new life. But how could I move on when the wound was so public? I grew up in Portland, Oregon, where success had a single, golden definition: Jeremy. He was the golden child, honors, Ivy League degree, and perfect family photos. My parents, deeply proud, hosted dinner parties to celebrate his every milestone. It wasn't about love, it was about public bragging rights. I was just the backdrop to his success story. I worked my way up to HR manager at a mid-sized firm, grinding out my master's degree at night. But my mother met every accomplishment with the same painful question, asked over and over: why can't you be more like your brother? That question became the wall I kept hitting. It taught me that my earned success was only ever a source of disappointment. I wasn't a failure. I'd earned my master's degree with honors, built successful HR teams from the ground up, and restructured failing departments. I was achieving real, measurable success. But in my family's home, none of that mattered. Every accomplishment I brought up was met with polite silence, followed inevitably by a new story about Jeremy's latest promotion or bonus. I learned early that in the Bennett family dynamic, pride was a privilege reserved for someone else. I was supposed to be supportive, not successful. My entire role was to provide contrast, not competition. It was emotionally exhausting, yet I kept trying to earn a basic level of acknowledgement. You have to understand this background to grasp the depth of the betrayal that came next. Everything I built, they ignored. That established the pattern. But what happens when you finally stop trying to impress the people who already decided you weren't enough? That's when the real story, my story, begins. 3 days before the wedding, I sent one last, desperate message. It was a plea, disguised as an update. I'd love to know if you'll be there. It would mean the world to me. I just wanted them to show up. To show they cared. My mother's reply hit first. It was curt, dismissive, and predictably centered on the golden child. Her exact words: Jeremy's firm has a major client event. You know how important his work is. Then came my father's email, shorter and cutting, straight to the point: we are busy. Do not contact us again about this trivial event. Something inside me didn't just break, it froze over. I was finally free of hope. What happens when your whole family treats your biggest life moment as a minor administrative error? I reread the message under the harsh glow of my laptop screen. Trivial event. The phrase echoed through my chest, a cold, hard bell tolling the death of my family fantasy. My wedding day, my new beginning, had been reduced to an inconvenience. They didn't even bother to lie well. This wasn't just rejection, this was emotional violence codified in corporate language. That night, something shifted. I didn't cry. I got administrative. First, I deleted the family group chat. The sound of the confirmation dialogue was the most satisfying closure I'd ever gotten. Next, I changed my last name on every social profile, erasing my physical ties. It was a quiet, digital declaration of war. I realized that my power wasn't in fighting for their love, but in deleting their access. They taught me my life moments were worthless. But what is the true cost of chasing the approval of people who value appearances over family? When the big day arrived, I made a conscious choice. I chose peace over pleading. There would be no last-minute calls, no desperate explanations sent to their cold inboxes. I had already deleted the family thread. My day was about commitment, not campaigning for their approval. The only way to win a game of abandonment is to realize you never needed to play. I was fully self-sufficient in my happiness. It was just a bride walking herself down the aisle. That moment would later define me more than any blessing my family could have offered. It was a self-inflicted blessing, the blessing of knowing my own worth. I didn't need their presence for validity. But the public wound remained. The world saw the empty seats. How do you make the world forget that betrayal? The reception was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the genuine warmth of our chosen friends. On the surface, it was perfect. But a part of me remained completely numb. The noise couldn't fill the hollow space where my family should have been. I felt like an actor in my own play, desperately trying to forget the 3 seats that were more present than any person there. Guests, out of politeness or concern, kept asking about my family. I smiled and repeated the soft lie: they couldn't make it. Travel issues. Inside, the truth was whispered, cold and constant: they never tried. They simply preferred the comfort of their loyalty to Jeremy. It was a new form of freedom. They couldn't disappoint me anymore because I finally expected nothing. I toasted my husband, Daniel, who was my rock. He saw the pain but never judged the anger building within me. This pain wasn't going to disappear. It was going to solidify. The emotional cost of their absence was due, and I promised myself they would pay the full invoice. But how could I make them pay when their currency was love, and mine was just money? Wait for the betrayal that was coming next. The reception was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the genuine warmth of our chosen friends. On the surface, it was perfect. But a part of me remained completely numb. The noise couldn't fill the hollow space where my family should have been. I felt like an actor in my own play, desperately trying to forget the 3 seats that were more present than any person there. Guests, out of politeness or concern, kept asking about my family. I smiled and repeated the soft lie: they couldn't make it. Travel issues. Inside, the truth was whispered, cold and constant: they never tried. They simply preferred the comfort of their loyalty to Jeremy. It was a new form of freedom. They couldn't disappoint me anymore because I finally expected nothing. I toasted my husband, Daniel, who was my rock. He saw the pain but never judged the anger building within me. This pain wasn't going to disappear. It was going to solidify. The emotional cost of their absence was due, and I promised myself they would pay the full invoice. But how could I make them pay when their currency was love, and mine was just money? Wait for the betrayal that was coming next. That Instagram post drove me to dig. As an HR manager, I know how to follow a paper trail. Through mutual friends and old, reluctant contacts, I started connecting the dots. The truth wasn't about love, or even Jeremy's career, it was about sustaining a fragile facade. I soon realized the favoritism was deeper and much more financially damaging than I ever imagined. My parents had been quietly funding Jeremy's entire lifestyle. It wasn't just cash gifts, it was the foundation of his fake success: private schools for his kids, the mortgage for a $2 million house in Lake Oswego, even $5,000 a week vacations. They were draining their retirement savings, not for necessity, but for social leverage. They invested in the child they could publicly brag about. I had earned my master's degree and HR promotions through brutal, lonely hard work. Jeremy got a $2 million check to sustain an illusion. My betrayal was complete. It wasn't just emotional, it was documented, financial proof that their love was a balance sheet, and I was in the red. What happens when the golden child is relying entirely on a golden parachute made of lies? And what happens when the overlooked child is the one who holds all the real power? While Jeremy lived on borrowed comfort, supported by a fraudulent foundation of parental money, I was building something real. My success had no safety net. It was pure, distilled effort, fueled by every slight and every moment of being overlooked. I realized they had bought him a title. I was fighting to earn my true authority. I took a massive promotion and moved to Houston. I led the HR restructuring for a company worth $21 million, managing the kind of high-stakes corporate transition Jeremy only pretended to handle. Every spreadsheet, every late-night strategy session was evidence. Proof of what I could achieve without favoritism, without a family name, and without a single handout. Slowly, I became the woman I used to imagine in my childhood mirror. Not the one my mother compared to Jeremy, but the one who was self-made, composed, and professionally unbreakable. I used the anger from the empty chairs as fuel, transforming pain into power. The silence that used to hurt now felt like a sanctuary of concentration. They ignored me, I out-earned them. I learned that the currency of true independence is loneliness. I was free, but the path was solitary. The Bennett name meant nothing to my board of directors, that was its power. I was building a castle of concrete, while Jeremy was building one of sand, supported by their diminishing funds. I was ready for the next phase. The preparation was complete. All I needed was for their facade to start cracking. My success proved that their rejection had been the greatest gift I never asked for. It forced me to rely only on myself. The day was coming when my power, my cold, measurable, financial power, would intersect with their crumbling, borrowed reality. Jeremy's house wasn't his success wasn't his. Mine was. The ultimate revenge isn't just winning, it's being the one they desperately need, but can never have. How long do you think it took for the golden child's luck to finally run out? The photos kept coming. Another holiday, another birthday, always featuring the smiling trio, my parents and Jeremy. One night, after seeing yet another perfectly staged picture, I didn't cry. The sadness was gone. It had been replaced by a quiet, burning clarity. I saw the facade for what it was, a desperate attempt to project a life that was constantly on financial life support. I smiled, a small, knowing curve. I realized the injustice wasn't that they excluded me, it was that they were trapping themselves with him. That night, I whispered a truth that became my shield: their choices are not my reflection. I was not a failure because they decided I wasn't the star. I was the one who had already escaped the sinking ship. I built my house on bedrock. Jeremy's was built on their retirement fund. The difference wasn't about who they loved more, it was about who needed them more. They preferred the power of being needed, even if it meant sacrificing their own future. My independence was a threat to their narrative of control and superiority. That was the real injustice. They punished me for my strength. My anger became transactional. I stopped viewing the situation as a search for emotional acceptance and started viewing it as a business strategy. The emotional debt they owed me was now being accrued as professional capital. Every hour I put into my $21 million deal was a way of saying, I will never need your validation again. I had the power now, the kind of quiet, sustainable power that doesn't need applause. Jeremy's success was a loan they were still paying off, mine was a secured asset. I was ready to watch their financial illusion shatter under its own weight. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just sitting back and watching gravity work. I realized my parents had set the stage for their own destruction. They poured all their resources into a fragile golden statue, ignoring the concrete fortress I was building. They needed the control, but I had the cash. The two realities were speeding towards a collision. How would they react when the money ran out and their supposed failure, the daughter they rejected, was the only one who could bail them out? You won't believe the low they sank to. My journey was complete. Their reckoning was about to begin. Independence, for me, wasn't just having my own apartment. It was the power of autonomy. The power of being entirely self-governed. I had built a life that didn't require parental approval or financial handouts. It required only my skill and my relentless drive. The silent treatment I received at my wedding became the soundtrack to my success. Jeremy was the golden child with the borrowed veneer. But the gold was thin. My parents loved the idea of him, they invested in the image. I was the child with the actual gold reserves. I finally understood the truth. The real golden child was always me. They just couldn't acknowledge it because it meant admitting their own failure in choosing. I knew their facade was unstable. Financial instability always catches up to those who live beyond their means, even with parental support. I wasn't going to interfere. I was just going to wait. My revenge would be patience and the inevitable law of financial gravity. I was ready to step out of the shadows, but only when the light of their fake success finally died out. Our separate realities were about to collide. Jeremy's investment firm was struggling. My father's retirement account was near exhaustion. And then, I got the call. The call that meant the long game was over, and the time for direct intervention had arrived. They needed an expert to navigate a corporate disaster, and the only person who could save the Bennett name was the daughter they erased. The voice on the other end was my father. He sounded small, weak, a dramatic contrast to the man who called my wedding trivial. The words were hesitant, then desperate. "Aniyah, we need you. Jeremy's in trouble." They were finally asking me for help. After 2 years of silence, the 3 empty chairs were suddenly calling me home. I hung up, took a deep breath, and looked at my reflection. This wasn't the return of the begging daughter. This was the arrival of the professional. The HR manager who handled high-stakes terminations. I was returning to Portland, not for reconciliation, but for a corporate cleanup. The 3 empty chairs had created a vacuum of power, and I was about to fill it. I would help them, but it would be on my terms, terms they wouldn't dare refuse. My plan was simple: save the company, expose the lie, and make them confront the true cost of their favoritism, and the emptiness of their golden child. Was this revenge, or just long overdue justice? The next chapter begins with my final, chilling condition. I accepted my father's desperate call, but my terms were non-negotiable. I didn't ask for an apology, or a public acknowledgement. I asked for only one thing: full, unquestionable authority over the crisis team. My father agreed immediately. He was out of options. I wasn't saving the family, I was saving the asset. I was an HR manager, and this was an institutional failure. Stepping back into Portland was surreal. They had been trying to erase me, and here I was, the only person standing between them and financial ruin. My mother's face was pale, my father's eyes avoided mine. And Jeremy? He was visibly shaking, realizing his borrowed throne was unstable. The irony was a strong perfume in the air. The daughter they called trivial was now their $21 million lifeline. My presentation wasn't about solutions, it was about the source of the problem. I laid out Jeremy's disastrous, unauthorized decisions, the blatant financial mismanagement that had been covered up for years by my father's fear of public shame. The truth wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a corporate, high-volume alarm ringing in their carefully controlled world. I stared at Jeremy, then at my parents, who were silently begging me with their eyes. I delivered the verdict with the clean, detached voice of an HR professional. To save the firm, all personnel involved in the gross mismanagement must be immediately terminated. I didn't need to name him. We all knew. I executed the termination of the golden child with a single, calm sentence. Jeremy stormed out. My parents were broken. I finally sat down, feeling the cold leather of the chair he had so undeservedly occupied. One of the empty seats from my wedding, the one that symbolized my brother's misplaced importance, was finally filled by the person who earned it. My power was complete. I had achieved ultimate justice, the corporate overthrow of the golden child. But what condition did I give my father to save his own retirement and the firm's reputation? The meeting was over. Jeremy was gone. My parents were in shock. I walked out of that corporate office having won the biggest battle of my life, but I felt nothing. The cold, clinical detachment of HR had saved the company, but it had left me completely isolated. The professional victory didn't fill the personal void. There was only one person who could truly bring me back to myself. I video called Daniel. The moment his face lit up the screen, the armor I'd worn all day finally cracked. He didn't ask about the meeting, the money, or Jeremy. He just said, "You're home soon." He saw the difference between the powerful woman who signed the papers and the weary wife who needed to be reminded of what really mattered. I told him I fired Jeremy. He chuckled. "You did what you had to do." He understood that the real betrayal wasn't the rejection, it was the attempt to undermine my intrinsic worth. Daniel was my chosen family, the one built on mutual respect, not social standing. We made our own story, far from the Portland drama. My power was secure, and my heart was anchored. With Jeremy terminated, the company and my parents' retirement were still on thin ice. I still had one card to play, one final act of justice. It was the condition I had set for my father to secure the $21 million rescue deal. It wasn't about money, it was about a public, inescapable truth. What was the ultimate move that would finally force them to acknowledge me in the same way they had publicly erased me? The ultimate revenge is not to punish them with loss, but to make them fully appreciate what they discarded. I had saved their company, their reputation, and their comfort, the very things they prioritized over me. My payment was simple. I wanted my name on the company plaque, not next to Jeremy's, but replacing him entirely. I also required a public statement of my true professional standing. No lies. No half-truths. The daughter they rejected would not only save them but would take the golden child's seat at the table of power. My final condition was met. My father, with a heavy heart and zero options, issued the public statement. The company's website featured a prominent story detailing my qualifications, my $21 million corporate turnaround success in Houston, and my new role. The name Anna Bennett, my married name, used professionally, was displayed as the savior of the family legacy, but the real victory was in the office lobby. The bronze plaque listing the firm's leadership now bore my name, not merely added to Jeremy's, but chiseled in place of his. They couldn't just add me, they had to replace the golden child entirely with the daughter they rejected. This plaque wasn't just a title, it was the public. Indisputable validation I'd spent my entire life trying to earn. I thought about the wedding. The empty chairs. The email calling my biggest day a trivial event. Now, their retirement was tied directly to my success, and their shame was tied to Jeremy's failure. They had traded a daughter's love for a son's image, and now the bill was due. The irony was complete. The 3 seats were empty again, but this time, it was by my design, not theirs. This victory tasted bittersweet. I had everything I wanted: respect, authority, and the ultimate acknowledgement of my worth. But it was won through a corporate battle, not a family embrace. I won the game, but the prize was just the right to be seen by the very people I no longer needed. The hole they left in my heart had been filled with steel. It was strong, but it was still cold. The greatest revenge is simply to outgrow your abuser. To make your strength so undeniable that they are forced to bow before it, not out of love, but out of necessity. They needed me to secure their future. I did it, but I took their most precious possession, the golden child narrative. The Bennett family was saved. But the Bennett hierarchy was destroyed. I left Portland the next day, not waiting for thanks, or pleas for reconciliation. I had given them my time, my expertise, and my cold, hard condition. That was the transaction. My true reward wasn't the plaque, it was the ability to return to Houston, to my husband, and to the life I built without them. That is the definition of final peace. My story is a reminder that rejection is often redirection. The people who refuse to acknowledge your worth are giving you the greatest gift, the freedom to pursue those who do. The golden child was shattered, the parents were humbled, and the overlooked daughter took the throne. But what happens to the Bennetts now that the real power has walked out the door? You can probably guess the next chapter of Jeremy's life. I agreed to one final dinner before flying back to Houston. It was a silent, heavy affair. The house was too quiet without Jeremy's self-congratulatory chatter. They tried small talk, asking about Daniel, about Houston. I kept my answers professional, clinical. I was not their daughter tonight, I was the CEO of the corporate cleanup. My mother reached across the table. Her eyes, usually hard with judgment, were now soft with need. "Aniyah," she whispered, Can we try to be a family again? We miss you." I pulled my hand back gently. "Mom, you don't miss me. You miss the convenience of the family you thought you had." I took a deep breath. "For years, I believed your love was conditional. But I was wrong. It wasn't conditional. It was transactional. You invested money in Jeremy, and expected social status in return. You never invested anything in me." My father finally spoke, his voice hollow. "We thought we were helping him." I countered, "You were buying your own comfort." "This," I said, tapping the file, "is the invoice for the golden child. The $2 million house, the private schools, the drained retirement. You paid a colossal financial price to maintain a lie. My price," I continued, "was far lower, just a seat at my wedding." The truth was a physical weight, pressing them into their expensive, hollow chairs. They could not look away this time. My mother started to apologize. But I held up my hand. "Don't. I'm not here for your apology or your forgiveness. I don't need them. Forgiveness is for the weak, I choose peace. I helped you because the company was an asset that belonged to Daniel and me, by extension. The family debt is paid. The invoice is settled. Now, my life is cash flow positive, with zero liabilities." My father asked the inevitable, "What about Jeremy? Can you give him another chance?" This was the moment of ultimate power. The power of the word they denied me my whole life. I met his gaze squarely. "No." The single word resonated with the finality of a gavel striking. The golden child's chapter was closed. I stood up. The confrontation wasn't revenge, it was an act of personal completion. I wasn't just walking out of the house, I was walking out of their narrative entirely. I had saved them financially, but I had permanently distanced myself emotionally. My only regret was that it took 2 decades of pain to finally realize I was my own greatest investment. I drove away, leaving them alone with the wreckage of the perfect family they had manufactured. They prioritized image over substance, and now they had only substance, cold and hard. My power was not in the corporate title, but in the ability to walk away. My revenge was simply the demonstration that the failure was the only one who could save them. Houston was waiting. Daniel was waiting. My real life, the life I chose, was waiting. I had saved them from the corporate disaster they manufactured, but I had permanently divorced myself from the emotional disaster they sustained. The chapter of Bennett family expectation was closed forever. The only inheritance I took was my self-respect. I heard that Jeremy struggled to find work. His network of high society contacts dissolved when they realized he was no longer financially propped up. His fall was not my doing, it was the natural conclusion of an unsustainable lie. They had taught him that money solved everything. He learned the hard way that earned money is the only kind that lasts. Daniel and I raised a glass to our 3rd wedding anniversary. No empty seats. Just genuine love and respect. We built our own tradition, celebrating the truth that the family you choose will always be stronger than the family you are given. That night, the past was a distant memory. I was finally, truly, free of the debt. Do I hate them? No. Hate requires too much energy. I have successfully downgraded them from sources of pain to merely unfortunate business contacts. They are a lesson in the high cost of misplaced priorities. My revenge wasn't a single destructive act, but the slow, quiet build of my own empire. I gave them the gift of survival, but I kept the treasure of my soul. I gave them the corporate title, but I kept the power of my boundaries. And in the end, that was the greatest victory. I was never the failure, I was the escape artist who broke free from the gilded cage. This story proves that the one who is ignored often has the greatest potential. When they push you away, they are only pushing you toward your true strength. Don't fight for a seat at a toxic table. Build your own table. The Bennett family is a cautionary tale of prioritizing image over a daughter's heart. So, what happens to the Bennetts now that I'm gone? Jeremy and his wife divorced after losing the house, and my parents are now living on a fixed, modest income, forever reliant on the health of the company I saved. They got their money, but they lost their control, and they lost their golden boy. Is it possible to forgive your family after they used your professional power to bail out their emotional blindness? Back in Houston, the air felt cleaner. The silence in my own home was a luxury I hadn't truly appreciated until I returned from the noise of the family drama. The silence wasn't rejection anymore, it was a golden sanctuary of focus. I had traded a life of desperate striving for a life of undeniable achievement. My relationship with Daniel deepened. We didn't need to discuss the Bennett family much, he understood that they were simply a closed business chapter. He was my partner, built on mutual respect. He never asked me to be anything other than the strong woman I truly am. Our marriage was a continuous conversation, not a performance for empty chairs or judgmental parents. My independence was secured. Not by a family will, but by my own sheer will. The only inheritance that mattered wasn't the company's profitability, it was the unshakable boundary I had built. I had successfully separated my professional success from my personal worth. I was no longer driven by the desire for their approval, I was driven by my own internal standard of excellence. The story of the golden child ended in tragedy for them, but for me, it was the start of an authentic life. I finally had the balance I deserved, a thriving career, a loving, chosen family, and the power of knowing that my future was entirely in my own, capable hands. My journey is a testament to what happens when you turn familial rejection into professional redirection. What did this story teach you about choosing your battles? I was 3 months into my new piece when the news broke. It came not from my parents, but from a former colleague in Portland. Jeremy's marriage was dissolving. His house was facing foreclosure. The scaffolding of the golden life had been pulled away. The inevitable end of the golden child narrative wasn't a fireworks show, it was a slow, quiet implosion. The next call was from my mother. Her voice was raw, desperate. "Aniyah, we beg you, you have to do something. Jeremy is ruined. He needs help. He needs your help." I took a breath, letting the desperation soak into the phone. "Mom," I said, my voice calm, "I already saved the family asset. I am not responsible for the liability." They wanted me to perform another miracle, to paper over Jeremy's lack of competence again. But the contract was fulfilled. They wanted the daughter back, the one who craved their approval. But that version of me was permanently terminated. He has to face the natural consequences of his actions. I taught him the cost of failure. Now, you must teach him the final lesson of independence. I made a concession, but it was purely professional. I sent my parents a sizable personal check, enough to cover Jeremy's debt temporarily, but not enough to solve his life. It came with a note for financial relief. Not for reconciliation. It was the ultimate boundary. I would fund their comfort. But I would never again fund their emotional blindness. My father tried to regain control. "If you don't help Jeremy, we will publicly state that you extorted us to take his job." The threat was pathetic. They had just publicly validated my competence. I calmly said, "Dad, I have the $21 million deal receipts. You have a fired son. Which story do you think the market will believe?" He hung up, Jeremy learned that success built on other people's resources collapses when those resources are exhausted. My parents learned that they couldn't buy love or competence. And I learned that the best revenge is financial untouchability. My heart remained closed to them, but my bank account was a testament to my power. The Portland drama faded into background noise. It was a clear, permanent separation. I had extracted the recognition I needed to close the chapter on seeking their approval, and in doing so, I had gained everything. The biggest victory was not the company, but the internal peace that followed the final confrontation. They had defined my value by my brother's proximity. I redefined it by my professional distance. I learned that my love for Daniel was my real power. He had accepted me when I was merely an HR manager seeking my worth. My parents only accepted me when I was a CEO saving their assets. The difference was unbridgeable. The Bennett family chapter was my origin story, but Daniel was my true happy ending. My life is no longer about them. It's about building a legacy with Daniel, teaching our future children the value of self-reliance and earned success. Jeremy's collapse wasn't a moment of celebration, but a quiet, powerful confirmation that karma has its own balance sheet. The silence is truly golden when it means you are finally at peace. The story ends here. I saved my parents from financial ruin, forced them to expose the truth, and took the golden child's place at the table of power. But I didn't stay. I walked away with the only prize that mattered, my freedom. The only thing left to know is, what does a life of genuine freedom truly look like after family revenge? Months later, Daniel and I were watching a documentary about toxic family dynamics. The expert spoke about the golden child syndrome. Suddenly, the truth was laid bare, clinically, not emotionally. Jeremy was as much a victim of their expectations as I was of their neglect. They had placed him in a gilded cage of expectations, and the cage was for both of us. I was constantly fighting to get in, I told Daniel, but Jeremy was constantly fighting to stay up. He had to maintain the illusion of brilliance, even when he was failing. He never had the freedom to just be bad at something. The true cost of favoritism isn't just the neglect of one child, it's the crippling pressure placed on the other. I didn't forgive Jeremy for his past cruelty, but I finally understood the why. My anger shifted. It wasn't focused on Jeremy, but on the system that created him. Empathy is not forgiveness. It's just clear-eyed recognition of shared damage. My liberation came from the outside. Jeremy's prison was built by their need for him to be perfect. The ultimate freedom is not having to respond. They still send the occasional, awkward email, but I don't engage. My silence is a statement, the door is closed, and the lock is permanent. My peace is non-negotiable. I protected my inner child by becoming the professional adult who needed no protection from them. Daniel and I are expecting our first child. The greatest resolution is not revenge for the past, but the commitment to a better future. Our child will know that their worth is unconditional, and that honesty and effort are the only true forms of gold. We will teach them that true love is an investment, not a transaction. The story of the golden child, the scapegoat, and the parents who ruined them is over. I escaped the narrative, secured my independence, and built my peace. If you are the scapegoat, remember this, your greatest power is your ability to walk away. So, what does it take for you to define your own unconditional worth after years of familial rejection? Daniel and I formally established our low-contact agreement. No holidays. No unannounced visits. Communication would be strictly via email, focused only on the company's health, which I still oversaw remotely. This was not anger, this was strategic self-protection. We chose peace over performance, and boundaries over belonging. I received a letter from my mother, a mix of apologies and subtle attempts to blame Jeremy. I felt nothing. Forgiveness requires genuine repentance, and they were still trying to control the narrative. I shredded the letter. Healing is not about forgetting, it's about separating. My power was confirmed when I realized that their opinion of me was entirely irrelevant. Daniel became the gatekeeper. He handled all communications and politely deflected any attempts to cross the boundary. He saw the scars they left and understood that protecting me was protecting our future. He didn't try to fix them, he just reinforced the wall. The greatest sign of true love is not being asked to sacrifice your mental health for a false sense of family duty. The company stabilized, generating steady income for my parents' retirement, just as planned. They had their comfort, I had my freedom. The transaction was complete. They got the retirement fund, but they lost the unconditional emotional resource I once was. The value of what they lost was far greater than the $21 million I saved them. They lost the chance for genuine love. My battle was never about proving myself to them, it was about proving my worth to myself. I won when I realized I didn't need their applause, their seats, or their validation. The final confrontation was not the ending, it was the signing of my Declaration of Independence. My story is a complete one. It's not just about the fall of the golden child, but the rise of the self-actualized scapegoat. I took my power back, and I will never let it go. Now that the scapegoat is gone, and the golden child is broken, do you think the parents will ever truly understand the damage they caused? 6 months after the final confrontation, I was back in Portland for a major client meeting. I was here on my terms, representing my success, not the Bennett family's legacy. Walking past the old financial district felt like visiting a historical site. I was insulated from the city's past by my professional armor. I was Aniyah, the CEO, not Anna, the rejected daughter, and then I saw him. Slumped on the steps of a building across the street, wearing a stained shirt and carrying a worn backpack. Jeremy. He looked older, heavier, defeated. The meticulously curated image of the golden child was completely shattered. He was just a man with a failed life, stripped bare of his unearned privilege. Our eyes met. The recognition hit him like a physical blow. The shame on his face was profound. He saw me, not just his sister, but the living, breathing proof of his catastrophic failure, standing tall in my own success. I didn't smile, didn't sneer. My face remained an unreadable mask of cold, professional indifference. He stumbled toward me, his voice a dry, desperate rasp. Aniyah. Please. Tell them it wasn't my fault. You know they'll listen to you. Just. Tell them I tried. The golden child, reduced to begging his scapegoat sister for one last, unearned lifeline, I didn't move. I simply looked at him, not with malice, but with the clear, assessing gaze of a CEO evaluating a failed investment. Jeremy, I stated, my voice low and firm, they do believe you tried. That's the problem. Your failure was accepted your whole life. Mine was not. You have to earn your life now. I turned my back and continued walking towards my high-rise client meeting. I didn't look back. That moment was the true ending, not the meeting where I saved the company, but the moment I walked past him and felt nothing but finality. His presence no longer held any power over me. The resentment, the longing, the pain, it all simply dissolved in the midday sun. Later, during the meeting, I closed a deal twice the size of the one that saved my parents' company. My success was no longer a weapon against my family, it was the foundation of my own, chosen life. The only applause that mattered was my own sense of earned accomplishment. My priorities had shifted permanently. I cared about the email from Daniel confirming our dinner plans more than any Portland news. The Bennett family became a footnote in the thrilling, complex biography of Anna Bennett, the self-made woman. That confrontation was the final act of my Declaration of Independence. Daniel and I built a home where worth is non-negotiable and success is shared. We are raising our children to understand that the family bond is built on truth, not financial or emotional manipulation. This is my true legacy. We teach them that the best revenge is a life well lived. The story of the scapegoat is often a story of transformation. The one you ignore becomes the one you cannot ignore, but by then, it is too late. My parents got what they wanted, stability. They also got what they deserved, the quiet truth of their choices. They had to live with the fact that their failure was their only savior. So, what is the moral of the story? Stop fighting for a place at a broken table. Build your own. Jeremy was trapped by the love he was given, I was freed by the love I was denied. That denial was my greatest motivational tool. The street confrontation was a final footnote to a closed chapter. The truth is, many of you watching are living this story right now. You are saving people who refuse to see your worth. But what happens next? What does that ultimate step away from the family drama truly look like? Is the peace I found truly achievable for everyone, or is there a hidden emotional price that still must be paid? Jeremy's existence remains a constant reminder to my parents that they bet on the wrong horse. They see him, struggling, and they are forced to confront their choices daily. My true revenge was making them live with their failed investment. I don't feel anger towards them anymore, I feel a deep, pervasive indifference. This story proves that your power doesn't come from your title or your bank account, but from your willingness to protect your peace. When you set the boundary, the toxic cycle stops. You break the generational chain of trauma. The Bennett family drama taught me that the only person who can truly save you is you. I eventually stepped down from the advisory board, the final cut. My obligation was fulfilled. My link to Portland was severed. The company was stable. The future was Houston. The past was a cautionary tale. The ultimate victory is when you realize you no longer even need to define yourself by your revenge. You have seen the rise of the scapegoat, the fall of the golden child, and the final, cold confrontation. But what about the parents? How do two people, so obsessed with image, cope with a retirement defined by public failure and private shame? Back in Houston, the residual stress from Portland felt distant, like a bad dream. Our home was more than just a house, it was a safe harbor built on mutual trust. It was the physical manifestation of a life where my worth was non-negotiable. I had traded the constant need to prove myself for the simple, profound joy of being accepted as I am. Daniel never asked about Jeremy or my parents unless I brought it up. His support was quiet, not loud. It was constant, not conditional. He was my lifeline, proving that the family you choose is always stronger than the family defined by bloodline. We built our relationship on transparent facts, not the delicate, easily shattered illusion of perfection. The power of a no is intoxicating. They called again, hinting at more financial woes, suggesting I should visit for the holidays. Daniel simply intercepted the call. I didn't even hear the phone ring. The boundary held, strong and invisible. My life in Houston was proof that self-protection is not selfishness, it is the ultimate act of self-love. With our baby due soon, the focus shifted entirely to the future. I was determined to raise a child who understood that their biggest asset was their authenticity. The biggest lesson from the Bennett saga was the cost of living a lie. We would teach our child that true gold is found in integrity, not inherited titles. People ask if I regret the revenge. The corporate confrontation was necessary to secure my parents' stability, but the true revenge was the life I built afterward. Vengeance is a temporary feeling, peace is a permanent state. I healed the generational trauma by simply refusing to participate in it any longer. I learned that the empty seat at my wedding didn't signify my failure, it signified their choice. My success was the definitive answer to their lifetime of doubt. The only truth that matters is the one you build, and mine is solid. I am the CEO of my life, and the Bennett family is officially a closed case. My life is proof that the scapegoat can win, not by destroying the golden child, but by building a better life. But I've shown you my side. You saw Jeremy's fall, and my rise. What about the architects of the drama? Did my parents ever find peace, or are they forever cursed by the image they tried so hard to maintain? Years passed. The $21 million deal was a distant memory. I started my own consulting firm, built from scratch, with a team that valued competence and integrity. This office, this company, this success, it was all mine. No inheritance, no handouts, just pure, relentless effort. I had established a legacy built on authenticity, not obligation. Daniel and I now have 2 amazing children. We talk about everything. We apologize. We celebrate effort over outcome. This is what a functional family looks like. My kids will never have to chase the approval of parents obsessed with external image. We replaced the trauma bond with a bond of genuine, unconditional love. News of the Bennetts occasionally surfaces, usually Jeremy taking a low-level, temporary job. My parents are comfortable, but quiet. The Bennett name died with their manipulation. It certainly didn't define me. They became a ghost story from a past life. I realized the most powerful action was simply living a life where they held no narrative space. Being the scapegoat taught me more than the golden child ever learned. I was forced to be resilient, resourceful, and self-reliant. I learned the value of hard currency, both financial and emotional. My childhood trauma became my greatest career advantage. I am the embodiment of self-actualization born from rejection. My mother tried to contact me on my birthday. I looked at the phone, then at my daughter, who was laughing. I muted the call. The lesson learned is that true boundaries are not about saying no loudly, they are about not needing to justify your silence. I secured my peace with the final, permanent closing of that door. I often think about the irony. My parents defined success by control and image. I found success in liberation and truth. They saved the company but lost their entire family. I lost a dysfunctional family but gained an authentic, thriving one. The scars from the past are now just proof of survival. This entire saga, the betrayal, the revenge, the confrontation in the street, was simply the process of extracting myself from their web. I wasn't just saving the company, I was buying my own freedom at market price. My life is a testament to the fact that you can choose your future, regardless of your past. My company's mission is to help others find clarity and self-worth, skills I had to learn the hardest way. I took the pain and turned it into purpose. The ultimate revenge is building a beautiful life where your abusers are completely irrelevant. I don't need their acknowledgement. My children know my true worth. The greatest feeling is not winning, but realizing that the victory is over. And the peace is here. No more seeking approval. No more fear of rejection. Just the quiet, steady hum of a self-determined life. That is the true ending of the scapegoat's tale. My 3 key takeaways for you. 1. Your worth is non-negotiable. 2. Your no is your most powerful weapon. 3. The family you choose defines your future more than the family you were born into. Internal validation is the ultimate prize. Now, I'm ready to move on, and I hope you are too. Thank you for joining me on this wild ride of family revenge. This story proved that even the most ignored character can rewrite the entire script. It's time to close the book on the Bennett saga. But before we go, there is one last piece of the puzzle to consider. We saw the scapegoat win and the golden child fall. We saw the parents lose their emotional leverage. But what about the company? Did the Bennett Corporation, the original source of all the pain, truly thrive once the entire family drama was removed from the boardroom? The answer is a final, ironic twist to this whole tale. My true revenge wasn't the company. It was the fact that I walked away from the $21 million deal and built my own $50 million empire without their name, their resources, or their approval. That is the definition of absolute, unassailable victory. They only ever valued the money. I valued my soul. Now, if you are the scapegoat, remember this: the people who neglected you are often the biggest casualties of their own system. What's the hidden cost of the golden child's failure, and does their downfall ever truly lead to the parents' redemption? The end of the story is the beginning of your freedom. I am Aniyah, and this is how I took my power back. I hope you find yours. The only thing left to do is press the subscribe button and choose your freedom. I was cleaning out my attic, a place where old memories go to die. I found a box of relics from my Portland life, including a faded family photograph. I saw the young, smiling Jeremy and the distant, seeking Anna. It felt like looking at strangers. The memory still existed, but the emotional charge was gone. It was the last vestige of the scapegoat I used to be. The deepest forgiveness I had to find wasn't for Jeremy or my parents, it was for the young Anna who believed she deserved to be treated that way. I finally told that girl she was worthy, she was enough, and she didn't need to win to be loved. Self-forgiveness is the final, essential step of truly letting go. I burnt the photograph. The physical act represented the death of my attachment to their narrative. The revenge, the job, the money, the exposure, was the tool. The freedom was the prize. But the victory itself was ultimately empty. True worth is inherent. The emptiness of external validation is the universe's final lesson. The scapegoat's power lies not in their suffering, but in their unique perspective. We are the truth tellers, the observers. We see the family drama for what it is, a broken, fragile system. I traded my place in their tragedy for a starring role in my own triumph. That is the true difference between revenge and resolution. And what about the Bennett Corporation, the source of all the obsession? Once the emotional drama was gone, the company didn't suddenly thrive. It plateaued, then slowly began to decline under the new, safe leadership. The image was clean, but the soul was gone. It proved that the chaos of my ambition, though painful, was the only thing keeping them innovative. I learned that the parents' true punishment was not financial ruin. I prevented that. Their punishment was the quiet, empty retirement defined by the absence of genuine love. They had stability, but they had no one to share it with, only Jeremy's continuous struggle as a backdrop. They won the financial game, but they lost the ultimate human connection. My gratitude is profound. I am grateful for the denial, which forced me to grow. I am grateful for Daniel, who showed me unconditional love. And I am grateful for the strength to walk away and stay gone. My life is no longer a reaction to them, it is a creation of myself. My legacy will be defined by the love I give my children. We will teach them that family is built on respect, not hierarchy. We broke the cycle. That is the ultimate closure to the revenge story. The Bennett name is irrelevant. My name is Aniyah. I closed the box and sealed it with tape. No more relics. No more ghosts. The past is where it belongs, in the attic. My focus is the clear blue sky of Houston, the face of my husband, and the laughter of my children. The war is over. My life is proof that you can leave the tragedy behind. To all the scapegoats watching, your worth is not a debate. Your mission is not to fix your abusers, it is to build a life so beautiful it makes their system obsolete. My system is love, truth, and boundaries. You have seen my entire journey. But there is one universal truth we must face. Stop waiting for the apology that will never come. Stop waiting for the acknowledgement. The final step is realizing that you don't need their permission to be happy. Their lack of love was never a reflection of your failure, but a reflection of theirs. The only redemption that matters is your own. The story of the Bennett family is finished. The golden child's chapter is tragic. The scapegoat's chapter is triumphant. The parents' chapter is empty. We saw justice served on the corporate stage and closure achieved in a quiet, Houston home. My victory wasn't just my wealth, but my emotional solvency. I've shown you my path to healing. But the journey of letting go is intensely personal. How do you define your final act of freedom? Is it through reconciliation, distance, or the total erasure of their influence? The answer is yours alone. Remember, your greatest revenge against a toxic system is to be happy, healthy, and successful outside of its control. It's a choice you make every single day. Don't chase their love. Chase your peace. Thank you for listening to my story, The Scapegoat Who Became the CEO. If this resonated, hit the like button and share your own story of breaking free in the comments below. Subscribe for more tales of family revenge and self-liberation. My consulting firm grew into something more than just business. It became a platform for teaching others to own their narrative. I mentor young professionals, especially women, who were undervalued. I help them understand that their past struggle is a blueprint for future resilience. My greatest success is watching them embrace the revolution of self-worth. I rewrote the script entirely. The scapegoat character is traditionally weak and broken. I turned that trauma into triumph, using the exact skills my family demanded: strategic thinking, cold logic, and relentless execution. I mastered their weapons and used them to forge my shield. My power didn't come from their approval, it came from the fierce independence they forced upon me. Happiness is a choice. It's the conscious decision to stop letting the wounds of the past dictate the joy of the present. Every day I spend with Daniel and my children is a victory lap. The greatest gift I received was the clarity of realizing what true family means. The scapegoat finally achieved unconditional belonging. The scars remain, not as reminders of pain, but as maps of my journey. I wear them with pride. They are the undeniable proof that you can take the most toxic situation and use it as fertilizer for your own growth. No external force can ever truly defeat a determined soul. The final resolution is self-acceptance. For every one of you who was the scapegoat, the overlooked, the blamed, the discarded, remember this: your exile was your superpower. It forced you to look inward and build a foundation no one could take away. The greatest freedom is self-sufficiency. Your journey is proof that you are unbreakable. I hope my story serves as a guide, not just a thrill ride. The revenge was satisfying, yes, but the real win was turning my back on the drama and walking into my own destiny. The toxicity ends with you. You are the chosen generation to break the cycle. Don't seek justice from them, seek peace for yourself. If you're on the fence about going low contact or no contact, understand this: your health is more important than their comfort. Your peace is a priority. Your story deserves a happy ending, one that you write. You are the author, not the victim. Take your power back and choose self-liberation. My future is bright, defined by purpose and partnership. I no longer waste energy on bitterness. The only thing I owe my past is the lesson it taught me. The Bennett family tragedy is now just a single chapter in my epic tale of personal freedom. Thank you for being a part of my final resolution. We've closed the chapter on the Bennetts. We've seen the justice, the peace, and the hope. But for those of you who are still searching for your final answer, what is the one thing you need to let go of today to finally claim your own freedom? Share your thoughts below. The story ends here, but your journey is just beginning. Remember, the scapegoat can win. If you felt this struggle, hit the like button and subscribe for more true family revenge stories that turn pain into power. I want to hear your story. What was the moment you finally chose yourself? Before you go, let's quickly recap the 5 most crucial lessons from my journey. Lesson 1: your worth is non-negotiable. Never allow another person's flawed perspective to dictate your value. Lesson 2: boundaries are your superpower. The strongest defense is a clean break, not endless arguments. Your peace is more valuable than their comfort. Lesson 3: vengeance is temporary, peace is permanent. The true win is the life you build afterward. Lesson 4: choose your family. The bond of respect is stronger than the bond of blood. Lesson 5: trauma is fertilizer. Turn your struggle into the fuel for your biggest success. Be the author of your own triumph. Now, take these lessons and apply them. Start building your new beginning today. Your freedom is waiting.